Um, People will be thinking, well, FSNA has done great things in the past, but really should I be interested now in joining? So let me ask you, looking ahead, what do you see as the challenges that FSNA is facing? What would you like to see happen in the future?
Well, I think one always has to be alert to the budgetary pressures on defined benefit pension schemes. Most of the rest of the world, at the government level, and certainly most of the private sector, is getting out of defined benefit pension schemes in favor of defined contributions, which means you pay a fixed amount. The value of what you get depends on the stock market in the meantime. So there's always going to be the need to keep an eye on pressures to shift from a defined. Now I don't think any government is going to do anything other than grandfather those who are already in the system. So I think our existing members hopefully are going to be protected, but one's obviously got to monitor that constantly and very carefully. Obviously the continued financial pressures on healthcare, which could have impacts on our own healthcare plans downstream, and you've got to keep an eye on that, make sure that we're realistic in what we're advocating, but that we also lobby effectively to make sure that those benefits are there. And I think one has, given demographics, seniors have more and more political clout. The other issue, I think, for the association is FSNA is a member of a coalition of senior organizations, which represent about 2 million retirees. And in fact, because of, I guess I should indicate, we do have a secretariat a national secretariat of about 12, 13 people, who are the only paid people in the structure. Our national board is all volunteers, and as are all the branches across the country. But we do have this research capacity, which is particularly strong on pension-related issues, on healthcare issues, and so forth. And we're also developing that capacity through provincial advocacy officers who are also monitoring provincial health practices, so one covers both. So what we bring to that national coalition of organizations is strong analytical research capacities. So the association plays a particularly, I think, valuable role on looking at seniors issues more generally because of its research capacity. And so I think it's looked to by these other organizations for advice and leadership. So I think that's
an important input.
Yeah. And it's tricky because you've got this debate, well, we don't want to be all things to all people. There are other senior organizations, so we should focus on do our own knitting. We should focus on pensions and health benefits for federal retirees, and not necessarily duplicate and get into services that are better delivered by others. So you've got to always make sure your relationships. So I think we can do a better job there, but knowing what other organizations in Ottawa are doing, how we complement what they're doing, how we might help through offering volunteers, what services they're offering that our members should be better aware of.
Yeah. Craig, just as a final point, and I think it'll give the people watching the video an impression of how active the FSNA is. Give me an idea in the last 48 hours, the last couple of days, some of the activities FSNA activities you've been involved in.
Well, this is a particularly timely question, so I don't pretend this happens every 48-hour period, but certainly the last 3 or 4 days. We have the second of our 2 general meetings a year happening on Monday, where we have the focus will be on financial management issues in retirement. So there's always a lot of last-minute logistical work and information work, to make sure everything's ready for the general meeting. So there's been a lot of that lately. But there's also been 2 big policy issues. Obviously, the government's announcement on income trusts and pension splitting. FSNA has been very active on pension splitting issues over the last 4 or 5 years, and even in the last 2 or 3 months, lobbying politically in a coalition with some other seniors groups. So what we're immediately interested in is, I've been back and forth. Do we have a national policy statement on the government's announcement? Do we have the details to the extent we have them on our website and or on the national website, so our members can actually look at what is in the government's plan to date? Does it cover RIFs, RRSP, as well as direct pension revenues? I mean, some of that is known, some of that we'll only know when we see the legislation. But it's making sure that, one, we have a policy stance, that the information is available to our members, and that we're starting to talk about our political lobbying efforts to make sure the other parties are as sensitive as the current government seems to be with regard to that issue. And then finally, there's been, and I've just returned from some travel, so I'm not up on this, but there's been some announcement in Toronto, which I gather has some impact between prescription drug coverage under OHIP and what we also enjoy under the Public Service Healthcare Plan, and some potential provincial move which would have a potentially negative effect on our coverage. So clearly that's an issue where we're concerned with, and my immediate question is, you know, what's going on here? How do I respond on Monday to any questions that our members may legitimately raise on that issue? What are the issues here? I mean, so that's busier than a normal 48-hour period, but it's not atypical of things that happen.
Yeah, but it brings out, I mean, there are very important interests involved for federal retirees, and how important it is to have the FSNA monitoring and lobbying on our behalf. So I think that's a good way to finish the video for potential members to be aware of those elements of the FSNA activities.
Sure. If I could just say www.fsnaottawa.com.
And it's all there.
Right.
Good. Thanks, Greg.